guys, it's Allie, and today I'm going to be going over some of my favorite books from 2018. Hamster. 2018 was a very big year for me personally and for my reading and writing life. I graduated from university after 4 long years and got my degree in education and English and teaching English to speakers of other languages. And not only that, but I started my own business. I started writing my book in earnest. I started my YouTube channel. And so the year of 2018 is one that I am always going to hold very dearly to my heart as a big year of firsts and lasts. So today I just wanted to reflect a little bit on some of my favorite books. I've tried to pick one from each kind of genre or type of book, like middle grade, children's, YA, that kind of thing. And I'm going to share those with you. It was very hard for me to choose just one, and so excuse me and sorry if some of your favorites are not on this list. They are probably some of my favorites too, but I needed to keep this relatively, manageable time-wise, so otherwise it would be like a 2-hour video. So yeah, I just wanted to share those with you today, and with that said, let's get into it. I'm going to kick off this list with my favorite middle grade of 2018, or that I read in 2018, and that is going to have to be Lucky Strikes by Louis Bayard. It is a historical fiction that takes place in I think it's in the 30s. It's like around the kind of Great Depression era, and it is in the area of rural Appalachia, which is where I went to college, was in James Madison University, which is in Harrisonburg. So it was really cool to have the exact same area, and so that was part of my bias for liking this book. But that is where it takes place, and it follows a young family who has just recently lost their mother, and their father is not a part of their family. They don't know who their father is, and they lose their mother at this gas station where they live and work. And so without a parent, they are now subject to be split up by social services, and also that they are going to obviously lose their gas station, and it will become more commercialized from some of the big business that is encroaching on this area. So their way of dealing with this is that our protagonist, first of all, pretends that her mother has not died, and then later finds a traveling man who they then pretend to be their father so that they don't lose the gas station. So it's a very interesting story. Louis Bayard is actually more known for his adult fiction, and so that is why this middle grade is a little bit darker than some of the more common middle grade that you might read. And that's part of what I loved about it, was that it was still very much a middle grade book. It followed a middle grade protagonist, but it dealt with some more deeper themes than more like children's based fiction usually would. So, big fan of that one, definitely recommended. Whether or not you are a fan of middle grade, this is a great middle grade book to start with or to put on your TBR if you have not already. The next category that I wanted to choose a favorite from was new adult, but I'm kind of cheating because rather than choosing an actual book that is classified as new adult, I am choosing a book, or 2 books rather, that aren't technically new adult, but that everybody kind of agrees should have been considered more new adult, and that is Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. The protagonists in these books are like around their late teens, but throughout the entirety of reading both of these books, I always imagined the characters being in their early to mid-20s, and that seems to be a pretty common theme with these books, that a lot of people think the characters should have been aged up, but because they were more restricted to YA, they had to be teenagers. So I consider these more NA books. I know that that's not exactly how they're advertised, but I wanted to put them on the list somewhere, and I couldn't put them anywhere else, so I'm cheating a little bit and saying that these books are NA for the sake of this video, just because I like these books a lot and I wanted to talk about them. My favorite adult book from 2018 was The Savior's Champion by Jenna Moreci, who is a fellow author tuber and also a self-published or indie author. And this is the first book in a series and follows the main character Tobias, who joins into this competition for the title of the Savior's Champion. The Savior is this kind of magical, goddess-like person who is the daughter of their ruler, and this competition, whoever survives and wins this competition becomes the Savior's Champion and wins her hand in marriage. So he is taking part in that competition, but he ends up falling in love with the wrong girl, and the story follows him and his love interest through the competition and all of the different gory details that entails, and by gory I do mean gory. A lot of people die in this book. My favorite fantasy book from 2018, which will come as a surprise to approximately no one, is The Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. This is the sequel to Strange the Dreamer. I have an entire review of this on my channel, so if you want to hear more about it and why I love it, then click on the info card up above, because I made a whole video about this, so I'm not going to explain it all again. My favorite sci-fi that I read in 2018 that I have somewhat of a hard time totally labeling as a sci-fi, because I feel like there is this new genre emerging that is specifically like superhero related, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to call it a sci-fi, and that is Renegades by Marissa Meyer. I call this a sci-fi because it is in a futuristic society and everybody has superpowers that are not based in like fantasy magic stuff. It's more based on like actual superheroes, you know, like being bit by a spider, or like something happens to you that means that you now have a superhero power. So that's why I call this a sci-fi. But this story follows Nova, who is our main protagonist, and she is not a member of the Renegades, which is the kind of governing body of this futuristic society composed entirely of superheroes. She herself hates the Renegades for reasons that you will find out in the book, and the story follows her as she actually infiltrates the Renegades as a kind of undercover, hurt them from the inside kind of mission. So this is a very cool one. It's such a shameless fun read, so if you have not read it already, or if you're not really sure if it is your cup of tea, then just give it a chance, because it is a really just shameless fun read. It is kind of big, but it's actually just kind of a breeze through type of read, so definitely this one is something to keep on your TBR. My favorite contemporary of 2018 is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I think I've mentioned this before in another video, but this is my favorite John Green book of all time. I am a general, like, casual fan of John Green's books, but this one really takes the cake for me. It follows our main protagonist, Aza, I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce her name, but she has a lot of anxiety and compulsions that are a huge component of her story, but we also follow her through a more external plot line of this rich man in her town has gone missing, and there's a huge monetary reward for finding him or finding information about his disappearance, and so she, alongside her friends, try to find out what happened to this guy, and all at the same time she's dealing with her own personal issues, her own compulsions, her own anxiety, and that's really what makes me so drawn to this book. So if you are someone who has not been a huge fan of John Green in the past, or if you had some minor issues with his writing before, then I would suggest you give this book a chance, because it is by far my favorite John Green book and my favorite contemporary of 2018. My favorite historical book of 2018 was actually not written in 2018, it's from 2002, but I did not read it until this year, and that is When My Name Was Kyoko by Linda Sue Park. So this is a historical fiction about the time right on the cusp of World War II, when Korea was under Japanese occupation. And the Japanese occupation of Korea was not a situation where the Japanese just kind of owned Korea. They essentially tried to take over it entirely. So you were not allowed to speak Korean, you were not allowed to have Korean flags, you were not allowed to tell Korean folk tales, and even Korean names were had to be changed to Japanese names. And so the protagonist of this story is Sun-hee, whose Japanese name was Kyoko, which is why the book is called When My Name Was Kyoko, and her brother Taegur, who they both have to kind of navigate this new space, both on the cusp of World War II, and so you can kind of see what World War II was like for people in Korea, and also for them as people who are dealing with the Japanese occupation. So this is a very interesting book, and it's not one that a lot of people talk about very often because, first of all, it is from 2002, and also because it's not a very trendy topic, but it is a very interesting read, and if you are at all interested in Korean culture, Korean history, Japanese culture, Japanese history, or just historical fiction books in general, then I very much suggest this book to you because it was one of my favorites of 2018. And finally, to wrap up this list, my favorite educational/writing-based book that I read this year was The Anatomy of Story by John Truby. Again, like with Muse of Nightmares, I actually mentioned this book before in my 6 books every writer should read video, so I will leave that linked above as well so that you can see that and have a better understanding of why I like this book so much. But you'll notice that that video has 6 books and this is only 1. Out of all of those books, this is probably the most comprehensive guide to storytelling, and it is also probably the most advanced, I'll say. It's not very basic, it's very in-depth, and I am all about things being in-depth, so this was probably my favorite out of those, but I do urge you to go check out that other video to see 5 more very great books for helping you learn how to write good. And that is it for all of my favorites from 2018. It hurts my heart to not include all of my favorite books from this year, but this video is going to be long anyway, so I'm going to save us all the time. If you want to know some of my other favorite books, then ask me in the comments and I'll let you know. But, that's it for me today and this week. And if you agree with my choices, if you had other favorites in these different categories, please do let me know in the comments. I would love to see what some of your favorite books were from this year. And if you haven't heard of some of these books and you like the idea of them, then also let me know that, because I like knowing that I've helped you guys find new books to read. So that's all for me, and I will see you guys in the next video.
We're an hamster.